Iowa, Illinois. The Hawkeyes travel to Champaign looking to rebound from their loss against Michigan. Illinois is a 3.5 point favorite. That game kicks off on Big Ten Network at 5:30. We got a huge total for this game, 35 and a half. Illinois is coming off a big win where they got Paul Christ fired, which, fun fact, I heard this today or yesterday. There's been, I don't know how many college coaches fired this year. Do you know how much these coaches are getting paid to not coach their respective schools or former schools?
Well,
16.
Wisconsin's paying them 16 million.
No, it was supposed to be. I think it got down to 11. There was an
Okay.
agreement there, but
But like in
six,
total, is it like
yeah,
69?
yeah, 60 million
Jesus.
to
That's
not
Well,
coach.
here's another stat on this. If Wisconsin would have won this game, Chris would have tied Bielema for wins at Wisconsin.
That's right. Yeah, it's what 68 wins Bielema has, and
Something
Chris.
like that. Yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, he would have tied him. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Man, but the guy won 9 games a year. They fire him. This seems like a lot like what Nebraska did to Frank Solich. And I'm not saying that Wisconsin is Nebraska, but I think Wisconsin should be careful about what they've done.
Yes.
And I know you two aren't going to lose any sleep over it because of who you guys cheer for, but that that's just and it's the nature of college football now, where that's going to be it, where they want to get a head start. And I think most of Wisconsin brass feels that if that they have the head coach on staff and they wanted to give him a shot. I think that's kind of what this was about. It tells me, giving Jim Leonard the nod and seeing if he is actually the real deal.
Yeah. Go ahead, Grant.
I was going to say I agree. If you don't have Jim Leonard on your staff, you don't make this move, because who else in the country would want to take this Wisconsin job? If I'm Dave Aranda in Baylor, why would I leave the state of Texas to recruit these high school players in Texas?
From a TV marketing standpoint, in the next couple of years in the conference, I mean, I think it's a possibility.
Yeah.
For Baylor, for him to leave Baylor if someone does call, which I think that's a very valid point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I heard this from Ross Uglum, who covers NDSU on 24/7 Sports, but he heard that from sources that Lance Leipold, that Wisconsin is his dream job, and there is a little bit of a connection there because he was the head coach at Whitewater for a long time.
Yeah.
So there's that, but we don't want to talk about that cheese wasteland. So we'll go back to Illinois, Iowa. Illinois is 4-1 for the first time, and who knows that Illinois D, and Ethan talked about it, is they rank first in scoring defense in the Big Ten at 8.4 a game. This is going to be a defensive battle. As we said, this total for the game is 35 and a half, which you almost have to bet the over, but I could totally see this game playing out to be a 13-10. I think this game is going to come down to, on the offensive side of the ball, which team is going to make less mistakes.
Isn't what Illinois running back's name's Corbin, right? He is I think it's like 7 straight games of 100+ yards. Honestly, like if they can't contain him, or even slow him down, hold him under 60 or 80 yards, like you have a chance. If he gets over 100, I think Illinois wins maybe not easily, but I don't think Iowa can put up the points versus Illinois defense, especially on the road, night game, which I know Champagne's not the craziest atmosphere ever, but at the same time, these fans don't even know what the hell this feels like. They've never had a big game like this in probably a couple of decades. So I don't think anyone knows what to expect there this weekend.
Well, yeah, I would agree. And, you see people sit back and say, oh, well, Illinois, they're 4-1, the one real, team before Wisconsin last week. They played Indiana. They lost 23-20.
Which they should have won.
They should have won.
But also, these players and coaches don't care. You play who's on your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And, for Iowa's sake here, this is more or less a game where the season could fall apart if you lose this football game.
Yeah.
You fall to 3-3, and the imploding button is going to hit. because you still have to play Nebraska, you still have to play Minnesota, you still have to play Wisconsin, and you still have to play Ohio State. So hypothetically speaking, boys, in Purdue and Northwestern, we know Purdue gives Iowa trouble. So let's play this hypothetical game. If you can't beat in Illinois, if you lose to Illinois with this rushing attack and this defense they have, you're sitting at 3-3. I think you're looking at lucky to be 5-7.
I was gonna say, to find 3 more wins is freaking hard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So this game is so important for just the morale of this team, because if the defense goes out and they play their hearts out again, but the offense just can't move the ball enough and they're on the field, eventually their will to live, it's a big thing to say, it's going to snap, and this defense is going to break. And if they don't get these turnovers, like what Ethan and I said last week, this defense will fold, and the morale and the moxie this team has is just, it's going to go on the toilet. So this game is huge just to try to keep your confidence up for this year. Forget the Big Ten West standings. I know it's an absolute joke right now. Northwestern's, 1-0 in the conference, and they're leading it. And, people in Iowa City will
6-way tie at 1-1.
What was that?
It's like a 6-way tie at 1-1.
Yeah.
Is it a 6-way tie?
Something like that. Yeah.
6 or 5. You'll probably have some people in Iowa City. Oh, anything is possible. 1-1. Well,
Nebraska's saying that.
Let's pump the brakes here, folks.
Nebraska, shut the fuck up.
If they don't figure this out and you go to 1-2 in the conference, it could be a long year, and it's going to be bad, because, like I said, you're gonna lose the locker room. The fan base is not going to have any confidence in the administration. The administration is going to have questions for the coaching staff. So this game is huge, just to try to get your confidence back and try to win some games and get going for the rest of this football season.
Say they go 5-7 or whatever it would be. Does Kirk retire?
He will. That's a great question, because if he wants to keep coaching, like what he said last year, he said, I don't have any other hobbies. The line he used was, I don't watch birds. So he's a football guy. Mm-hmm. But you also have to think someone's going to get in his ear and say, you have to change your offensive identity. You can't have your
at least Brian for minimum.
He's not gonna fire his son, but you got to think the administration and everyone else is going to have to sit back and say, we don't want to fire him, but you have to move on. And if you don't move on, you're both losing your job, and you do mutually agree to part ways with your offensive coordinator. I don't know, but if you go 4-8, 5-7, these questions are going to come up, because Wisconsin, they got ahead of this curve. You look at Iowa and Wisconsin are kind of going down the same path in terms of the football program. They're stuck in 2005 with the way their philosophy and how they want to play. It could be some dangerous times ahead if you don't adapt to the current times. And also, what's going to stop, let's say, Keenan Johnson from saying, Charlie Jones left to go to Purdue, and he's had a nice year. What happens to all these other receivers on your offense? Sam Laporte's going to be gone after this year. Then you're going to have no skilled players going into next year. So this is a big game for the future of this program, this team, and this coaching staff.
Well, the weird thing about the Brian Ferentz thing is that's not – the final decision isn't Kirk's, because he doesn't report to Kirk. He reports to Gary.
And that's what I'm saying.
The call would be from Gary.
And
Kirk's, obviously, his opinion very much matters more than anyone's, obviously. But Gary's the one that puts the kibosh on it if it would ever happen.
So then I would hope if Gary doesn't want to fire his head coach, or his head coach doesn't want to part ways or, retire, Gary's going to have to make that uncomfortable call and tell Kirk, you have to make a change, because it's been trending downward for 5 years. And like what Dylan said to start the podcast, this episode tonight, 4th and 2, you throw a 1-yard route. You have a right-handed quarterback and you roll out left. That's unacceptable. He doesn't have the arm strength of Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen to do that, and his footwork is terrible. And then why you have a former offensive lineman coaching your quarterbacks is also just it's football malpractice. So Iowa, like I said, if they lose this game and they go to 3-3 and things go south quick, things are going to have to change.
Well, and I saw this on Twitter during the Michigan game with people tweeting about how they wanted Alex Padilla and comparing this situation to the Ricky Stanzi and whoever the quarterback was before him and CJ Beathard, Jake Rudock situation. The difference is both Ricky Stanzi and CJ Beathard are NFL quarterbacks. Alex Padilla is not an NFL quarterback. They're both Petrus and Padilla are equally just as bad. You're getting the same quarterback with both of them, throwing either one of them out there.
Correct. But I think at this point, you've seen Petrus for 2.5 years. You got to see what else is on your roster. And especially if you continue to go 3-3 after this Saturday, and if you lose games, you have to look into the future. You can't tell Petrus, hey, you know what? You're going to give you your COVID year back and come be your starting quarterback. That's not the case. There has to be a new starting quarterback on your roster next year. And if Padilla is your backup, you got to give him more than one start against Minnesota last year to see if this is the true sample size. And if he's not, let's say you give him these next 6 games or 5 games to end this year. If he's not, you're either going to have to do something in the transfer portal, which this team doesn't want to do, or you have to look at how you've recruited your quarterbacks in these last couple of seasons and say, are one of these the guy? But at this point, you almost have to get Petrus out of there because you know what he is. You know he's awful. And just see what Padilla has, for the love of God. I mean, it can't get any worse than this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they need to be pro quarterbacks, but something has to be better than what this is right now. This is just awful.
They need, well, if you got what you got out of Nate Stanley, another NFL quarterback, but
yeah, exactly. You kind of, Stanley, he drove you crazy at some games, but God, there's sometimes a lot of these last 3 years where you're just like, just had Nate Stanley back.